Have you ever lied to try to make something better? Hey everybody, this is Pastor Justin Walker with The Whole Truth, where I'm taking you through the entire Bible from Genesis all the way to Revelation. And if that sounds like a good idea to you, reach down and hit the subscribe button below. When I was a boy, we used to I had brothers, and we would pick on each other, and we would fight and wrestle all the time. And I can remember this happening lots of times, but I remember one time in particular that I was picking on my brother, and he reached over and gave me a horse bite. You ever had somebody do that where they take their hand and put it over top of your, kind of the end of your thigh where your kneecap is, and they squeeze real hard and it tickles and it kind of burns and hurts a little bit. And so I'm laughing and kind of crying, "Oh, stop. I wanted him to quit. And he let go. And you know what I did the moment he let go? I went right back to picking on him and I punched my brother. And then he tackled me and we ended up in a huge fight. Today, we're going to see Pharaoh kind of do a similar thing as he's going to beg God to stop from this fourth plague. We're in the plagues of Egypt as Pharaoh's being told to let the people go. This is Exodus chapter 8. So turn in that Bible of yours to Exodus chapter 8, verse 20. And the Lord said to Moses, "Rise early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh as he comes out to the water. Then say to him, 'Thus says the Lord, let my people go, that they may serve me. Or else if you will not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies on you and your servants and your people and into your houses. The people of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground on which they stand. In that day I will set apart the land of Goshen in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, in order that you may know that I am the Lord in the midst of the land. I will make a difference between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign shall be." And the Lord did so. Thick swarms of flies came over the house of Pharaoh, into his servant's house, and into all the land of Egypt. The land was corrupted. Because of the swarms of flies. Now we see what the fourth plague is. God's going to send these swarms of flies. Now there are some commentators. I want to make sure I'm trying to teach the whole thing here. It's the whole truth. There are some commentators who they believe that the swarms of flies were beetles, and that kind of makes sense because in Egypt, they worshipped beetles. There was this one particular type of beetle. They believed that the beetles they worshipped them, and they thought that they were kind of the gods of eternity. And so that kind of makes sense that, because they worshipped beetles, maybe this was beetles. But I tend to just like to leave the scriptures right where they are, especially when we can. And listen, there is nothing. Have you ever had, I was going to say nothing worse than, I'm sure there is something worse than, but have you ever had a pesky fly? You ever been trying to watch TV at night with the lights off and there's a fly buzzing around the screen? You know how annoying that is? Have you ever been in a situation, last night I was at my son's ball game and there were gnats everywhere. They were just all around. I was smacking my skin, they kept landing on us. When we folded down our tent, there was gnats all over the top of the little awning tent canopy thing we've got. There were gnats all over the top of it that were dead. I mean, it was just an annoying thing. And this was like maybe, 10 gnats that were around me at a time. The Bible says here that these are swarms of flies. And so I just like to leave it at flies. And in my mind, it makes sense. Regardless of whether it was beetles or flies, it was swarms of them. So much so that they devastate the land, which is another reason some would say beetles. But still, devastates the land. It's covering the people. It's covering the land. I mean, can you imagine you're sitting there and there's just all over you, these flies are just landing all over you. And they're all over. The ground is covered. The crops are covered. Everything. Swarms of flies have come in. And even more so, God said in this particular plague, he said he was going to leave the land of Goshen out of it. Goshen, if you remember from as we ended the book of Genesis, hence why it's important to read the whole truth, the whole Bible. When we ended Genesis, remember that that's where Joseph had put his family. His brothers had come to live with him in Egypt, and he gave them the land of Goshen. So the Hebrew people, the Israelite people, are living in the land of Goshen. Even though they're slaves, that's the land that they inhabit. That's where they live. God says, I'm not going to have this, so you know that this is me. I'm not going to let the flies even go into Goshen. There will be no flies in Goshen, but they will be all over you. And that's what happens. The swarms of flies are absolutely everywhere, covering everything, but not covering Goshen. Now check this out. You ready? This is verse 25. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, "Go, sacrifice to your God in the land." And Moses said, "It is not right to do so, for we would be sacrificing the abomination of the Egyptians to the Lord our God. If we sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians before their eyes, will they not stone us? We will go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our God, and he will command us." And so Pharaoh said, "I will let you go that you may sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness. Only you shall not go very far away. Intercede from me." And then Moses said, "Indeed, I am going out from you, and I will entreat the Lord that the swarms of flies may depart from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. But let Pharaoh not deal deceitfully any more in not letting the people go to sacrifice to the Lord." So Moses went out from Pharaoh and entreated the Lord, and the Lord did according to the word of Moses. He removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh's servants, and from his people. Not one remained. Let's just stop there. We'll come back and finish up the chapter. Did you understand what just happened? Pharaoh came to Moses and said, "Make it stop. Make it stop. My brother giving me a horse bite. Please stop. And my brother finally let go. Pharaoh just said, it's so bad. The swarms of flies are so bad. He goes to Moses and says, "Make it stop." Now, this is not the first time Pharaoh has done this, and I want you to really think about this. Here is Pharaoh. He knows where the plague must be coming from. Do you remember when Moses first went to Pharaoh? God said, "Moses, go to Pharaoh, tell him, let my people go." And Moses did just that. And do you remember what Pharaoh said? "I don't know your God." Who is your God? I don't know him. Pharaoh believed himself to eat among the gods. That's what the Egyptian pharaohs believed. They believed that they would sit down, and when they would eat, that they would eat among the gods. Pharaoh believed that in his heart. And he says, "I don't know this God. I don't know him. Who is he? I'm not going to let the people go. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make their work even harder." Remember that video? Remember that part of the Bible when Pharaoh said to Moses, "I'm going to make their work even harder because I don't know your God." And Moses was so upset. Here we are. We're just 4 plagues in. There's 10 plagues total. And Pharaoh knows exactly where the plagues are coming from now. If he didn't know God before, he certainly knows now. He can't call on his own gods. He can't call on his magicians. He can't get rid of this on his own. There's nothing Pharaoh can do less than go to Moses and say, "Moses, please entreat your God for me that these swarms of flies would go away." And Moses says, "Okay, I'll do it, but don't deal deceitfully with us. We want to go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and worship our God. Let us go 3 days away." And Pharaoh said, "You can go, but you can't go. You can't go 3 days' journey. Do it in the land. Sacrifice in the land." And Moses said, "We can't. If we sacrifice here, you all will stone us." And Moses was right about that. They would have done that. They would have stoned. They would have stoned the Hebrew people. They would have made their work harder. They would have done awful things to them if they had tried to worship right there in the land. The Egyptians were very, for lack of a better term, because it's true, they were very racist people. They were very segregated people. They were separated from other nations. And so they would not have wanted for the Egyptian or for the Hebrew people to be sacrificing to their God on Egyptian soil, in Egyptian land. And so Moses says, "Let us go. Let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness." And Pharaoh says, finally, he goes, "Fine, you can go 3 days. You can go for 3 days. You can go sacrifice to your God, but don't go very far. You can take the 3 days, but don't go very far." And so Moses says, "Okay, I will, but do not deal deceitfully." So Moses went and he petitioned the Lord, and he says, "Lord, take away the flies. Pharaoh has said he will let us go." And now we pick up in verse 32, and look what happens. "But Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time also, neither would he let the people go." Are you seeing this? He knows who God is. He sees the power of God. He knows that he is powerless against God, and yet he still refuses to let the people go. He still refuses to do what God is telling him to do. How true is this for the heart of man? You and I, Do we not do this same thing? We know who God is, we know what his power is, and yet we still refuse to do what he says. Now, if you say to me you don't know of anybody who does that, I could give you example after example. And I want to be cautious here because these are videos that are online and I don't want to tell anybody's personal business online. But I'm telling you that I know people who they know that God is real. As a matter of fact, they know he's real so much so. And how many people maybe you know who are actually angry with God? Maybe they lost a loved one. Maybe they lost a relationship, a marriage failed, or something happened, and they literally blame God, and they're mad at him for it. Think about that. They know God, they know he's real, they believe in him enough to believe that he had control over the situation, just like Pharaoh believed in God, knew at this point he knows God is real, and he knows God has control over the situation, yet his heart is still hard. We can do that too. We can know who God is, believe in him, know his power, recognize what he wants us to do, and we can be angry with him, we can have hard hearts towards him, and we can turn away from him. Friends, today it's time to make a decision. Pharaoh, he was willing to make that decision when everything was crashing in on him. And God was trying to get Pharaoh to know who he is, to understand his power, and he was commanding him to let the people go. That's what he was doing. And he's doing the same for you and I today. God is calling unto us. And everything in your world might be crashing down, but it might be crashing down because God is trying to get your attention. You know who he is. You know what his power is. It's time to make that decision and follow him. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you tomorrow with the 5th plague of Egypt. See you then.